This is our next part of Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. Remember, Christian is talking to the young virgins, and they're asking him questions. Why hadn't he witnessed to his wife and his family and his neighbors? And he's trying to explain to them that he tried. Let's continue. Christian continued the conversation as he ate. For as they said, as I believe, he lost a lot of blood doing this. This is talking about Jesus. But he did it all in the glory of grace and with a motive of pure love for his country. Besides this, some of the others around the table said that they had spoken with him, following his death on the cross. Plus, they testified that they heard from his own lips that he is such a lover of poor pilgrims that no one else is like him in the whole world. To make their point, they gave an example of how he had stripped himself of his glory, so he might do this for the poor. Those who had heard from him confirmed that he would not live in the mountain of Zion alone. They also talked of how he had made many pilgrims into princes, even though by nature they were born beggars, and their nature originated from the dunghill. The book says he raises the poor from the dust, he lifts the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit with nobles and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he set the world on them. And in this way they spoke together till late at night, and after they had committed themselves to their Lord for protection, they each went to bed. They put Christian up in a large upper bedchamber with a window that opened towards the sunrise. The name of the room was Peace, where he slept until dawn. When he awoke that morning, he sang joyfully, "Where am I now? Is this the love and care of Jesus for the men the pilgrims are, thus to provide that I should be forgiven and dwell already the next door to heaven?" So in the morning they all got up, and after more conversation they told Christian he should not leave until they had shown him the distinctive features of that place. First, they brought him into the study, where they showed him records of the greatest antiquity. There, in my dream, they showed Christian the bloodline of the Lord of the Hill. It showed that he was the son of the Ancient of Days and came from an eternal generation. These records also revealed more fully the deeds he had done and the names of many hundreds whom he had recruited into his service. They also showed how he had placed them in such a dwelling that would never pass away by undergoing decay or the passing of time. Then they read to him some of the notable deeds performed by some of his servants, including how they had subdued kingdoms, brought about righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, and escaped the edge of the sword. Yet out of weakness they were made strong, and became valiant in the fight, and turned foreign armies to flight. Then they read another part of the records of the house, which revealed how willing their Lord was to receive any person, no matter what kind of person they were, into his favor. This even included people who had in the past offered excessive insults to his character and accomplishments. Along with these, several other historical documents provided accounts of many other famous events, which Christian also viewed. These records included things both ancient and modern, along with prophecies and predictions concerning specific matters that are certain to be fulfilled, both to the dread and amazement of enemies and the comfort and relief of pilgrims. The next day they brought Christian into the armory, where they showed him a variety of military weapons which their Lord had provided for pilgrims. There was a sword, a shield, a helmet, breastplate, all prayer, and shoes that would not wear out. The great supply was enough to outfit as many men for the service of their Lord as there are multitude of stars in the heavens. They also showed him some of the military equipment which some of his servants had used to accomplish wonderful things. They showed him Moses' rod, the hammer and nail with which Jael slew Sisera, the pitchers, trumpets, and lamps too, with which Gideon put the Midian armies to flight. Then they showed him the ox goad which Shamgar used to slay 600 men, and the jawbone with which Samson did such mighty feats. They also brought out the sling and stone with which David slew Goliath of Gath, and the sword their Lord would eventually use to kill the man of sin on that day of final victory over the predator. Besides these items, they showed him many excellent things that delighted Christian very much. They finished, and at the end of the day they went to bed again. Then I saw in my dream on the following day that Christian got up expecting to head out on his journey, but those in the palace invited him to stay for one more day. They said, "If the day is clear, we will show you the delectable mountains, for they will further add to your comfort, because they are so much nearer in the celestial city than where you are now." So he agreed to stay, and the next morning they brought him to the top of the house and said, "Look, south." And when he did, he saw a range of very pleasant mountains a great distance away. They were covered with beautiful woods, vineyards, fruits of all sorts, as well as flowers. Springs and fountains flowed freely, and the place was very appealing to look at. Christian asked, "What is the name of the country?" "Emmanuel's Land," they said. "For true pilgrims, it offers the same character as this hill on which the palace is located. When you go there, from that vantage point you may see the gate of the celestial city, which the shepherds who live there will make appear." Now he gave thought to leaving the next day and of making preparations, but his companions said, "First, let us go back into the armory." So they did, and when Christian walked into the room, they equipped him from head to foot with fully tested weapons, just in case he should be assaulted on the way. Once he was well outfitted, he walked out with his friends to the gate. There he asked the porter, "Have you seen any pilgrims pass by?" The porter answered, "Yes, I have." "Tell me, do you know his name?" Christian asked. "I did ask him his name, and he told me it was Faithful." "I know him," Christian said. "He's my townsman, my near neighbor. He comes from the place where I was born, the city of destruction. How far do you think he is ahead of me?" The porter thought for a moment and said, "By this time he has probably passed beyond the foot of the hill." "Well, good porter, the Lord be with you and increase your blessings for all the kindness you have shown me." Then Christian headed out, but discretion, piety, charity, and prudence decided that they would go with him to the foot of the hill. So they walked on together while reiterating their former discussions on their way to the bottom of the hill. Christian said, "While it was difficult coming up the hill, so far as I can see, it is even more dangerous going down." "Yes," Prudence agreed, "so it is. For it is a hard matter for a man to go down into the valley of humiliation, as you are doing right now, without slipping along the way. It is for this reason that we decided to accompany you down the hill." So they continued together down the hill, and though Christian walked very carefully, he still slipped a time or two. Then I saw in my dream that when Christian and his good companions reached the bottom of the hill, his companions gave him a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, and a cluster of raisins, and said farewell to him, and he went on his way. While Christian was among his godly friends, their precious words offered plenty of amends for all his grief, and when they let him go, he was clad with northern steel from top to toe. But it didn't take long for Christian to be hard-pressed. In this valley of humiliation, he had only gone a little way before he spotted a foul fiend coming across the field to meet him. The fiend's name was Apollyon, which means destroyer. Fear-filled Christian, his mind raced toward trying to figure out what to do. Should he go back or stand his ground? As he considered his options, he thought about retreating, but he had no armor on the back. If he ran away and turned his back on the fiend, it might give his foe a greater advantage, making it easier to pierce him with his darts. So Christian determined to stand his ground and risk confrontation with the enemy. He was out of time, and it was the best thing to do. So he continued on, and Apollyon met him. The monster was hideous and clothed with scales like a fish. They were his pride. He also had wings like a dragon, feet like a lion, a bear, and out of his belly spewed fire and smoke, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. When he came up to Christian, he eyed him with disdain and began to question him. The fiend asked, "Where did you come from, and where are you going?" Christian swallowed his fear and said, I've come from the city of destruction, which is the place of all evil, and I'm going to the city of Zion. From destruction, you say? Then that means you are one of my subjects, for all that country is mine. You see, I am its priest, prince, and God. Apollyon's eyes narrowed. So how is it, then, that you have run away from your king? If it wasn't for my plans for you to serve me more, I would strike you to the ground with one smashing blow right now for such an act. Christian stood his ground. I was indeed born in your dominion, but your service was hard, and your wages such as a man cannot live on. For the wages of sin is death, the book says. So when I reached adulthood, I did what thoughtful people do. I looked for a way that I might perhaps improve myself. Apollyon looked down on Christian with eyes hooded with pride. No prince worthy of his title releases his subjects easily, and I am no different. I am not ready to let you loose as yet. But since you have complained about your service and wages, let me encourage you to go back home. I personally promise that what our country can afford, I will give you. Christian shook his head. I can't do that. You see, I have already yielded myself to another, even to the king of princes. How can I, in all fairness, go back with you? One side of Apollyon's thin upper lip curled. You have done exactly as the proverb said, exchanged a bad for a worse. However, it's quite common for those who have professed themselves to be his servants to give him the slip after a while and return to me. Do this, and I promise all will be well. Christian stood his ground. I have given him my faith and sworn my allegiance to him. How can I possibly go back on my word and not be hanged as a traitor? Think about it. You did the same to me, and yet I am willing to forget about it, if you will turn again and go back to destruction, Apollyon responded. Christian raised his palm toward the fiend. No, what I promised to you happened when I was but an immature youth. Besides that, I regard the prince under whose banner I now stand to be one able to absolve me of your charges. He let his hand drop and looked Apollyon directly in the eye. And yes, he is also able to pardon the things I did in service to you. Besides that, destroying Apollyon, to tell you the truth, I like his service. I like his wages, his servants. I like his government and his company, and his country is better than yours. So stop trying to change my mind. I am the Lord's servant, and I have made up my mind to follow him. A wisp of smoke curled from Apollyon's nostrils. That's all well and good, but think of what it will be like when your spirits are low and you have so much to get done. He paused dramatically and raised the bony-looking ridge above his right eye. You are aware that, for the most part, his servants come to a wretched end because they are transgressors against me and my ways. How many of them have been shamefully put to death, and you consider his service better than mine, even though he has never come from that heavenly place where he is to rescue any of his servants out of their enemies' hands. On the other hand, the world knows I am nothing like that. Look at how many times I have delivered those who faithfully served me, either by my power or by the use of fraudulent schemes, even when they were taken by him and his followers. And so will I rescue you in the same way, Christian. You don't understand, Christian said. His present restraint in delivering them is deliberate and with purpose. It is to test their love and prove whether they will be loyal to him to the end. And as for the shameful end you say to their destiny, that isn't an end, for they are assured of receiving future glory. In fact, they don't expect deliverance now. Instead, they are content to wait for their future glory, and they will have it when their prince comes in his glory along with the angels. Apollyon jabbed his pointed finger in Christian's direction. You've already been unfaithful in your service to him, so how is it that you think you're going to receive wages from him? Tell me, Apollyon, in what ways have I been unfaithful to him? Very soon after setting out from destruction, you were quickly discouraged, when you were almost choked in the slough of despond. He raised his bony finger to track just how unfaithful the pilgrim had been. You also made several wrong attempts to be rid of your burden, when you should have waited until your prince had taken it off. He ticked off his point on a second finger. Plus, you sinfully overslept. You lost your precious possession, and you almost turned back at the sight of the lions. He ran out of fingers on which to count Christian's missteps and dramatically threw his hand in the air with a flair to make his point of just how unfaithful Christian had been. And when you talk about your journey and of what you have seen and heard, inwardly you desire personal praise for all you say and do. Christian glanced at the ground. All this is true. In fact, there is much more that you left out. And he looked back at Apollyon. But the prince whom I serve and honor is merciful and ready to forgive. But besides these wrongdoings which I committed in your country, where I was brought up and educated in them, I have groaned under and repented of them. As a result, I have received a full pardon from my prince regarding those crimes. Apollyon broke into a furious rage, saying, I am an enemy to this prince. I hate his person, I hate his laws, and I hate his people. He spit the words out as if they left a bad taste in his mouth. I have come out here to purposely oppose you. Christian did not back away. He said, Apollyon, be careful of what you're doing, for I am on the king's highway, the way of holiness, so watch yourself. Apollyon defiantly straddled the entire width of the way, blocking Christian's way. I am not afraid to do this, the fiend hissed. Prepare to die, for I swear by my infernal den that you will go no further, for here will I spill your soul. Without warning, he hurled a flaming dart at Christian's breast. But Christian lifted his shield of faith in his hand and deflected it, and so avoided the danger. Christian drew his sword, for he saw it was time to rouse himself to action. Apollyon quickly responded by throwing darts as thick as hail, and even with all the skill he could muster, Christian could not deflect them all. Apollyon inflicted wounds to his head, hand, and foot. Christian retreated a little, and Apollyon pressed more forcefully. Yet Christian took courage and resisted as fearlessly as he could. This agonizing combat lasted for more than half a day, until Christian was almost exhausted. For you should know that because of Christian's wounds, he inevitably grew weaker and weaker. Then Apollyon spotted his opportunity. He began to press closer to Christian, wrestled with him, and threw him hard to the ground. Christian's sword flew out of his hand. Apollyon's teeth showed in a sneer. I am sure of you now. The fiend drew closer, intending to inflict a mortal wound. Christian began to despair for his life, but as God would have had it, while Apollyon prepared to make his final blow to destroy this good man, Christian nimbly reached out his hand and gripped his sword. He cried out, Do not rejoice over me, O my enemy. Though I fall, I will rise. With that, Christian gave Apollyon a deadly thrust. The fiend drew back like someone who had received a fatal wound. Christian recognized the opportunity and moved in on him again, saying, But in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us. Apollyon spread his dragon wings and quickly took to the air and flew away, until Christian no longer saw him. The book says, Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Now, unless you had seen and heard the intensity of this combat like I did, you can't imagine the yelling and hideous roaring Apollyon made throughout the fight. Along with that, he spoke like a dragon, and on the other side of the fight, sighs and groans burst from Christian's heart. I'd never seen him give so much as one pleasant look throughout the hellish fight, until he knew he had wounded Apollyon with his two-edged sword. Then a smile brightened his face, and he looked up. But it was the battle itself that was the most dreadful sight I ever saw. So when the battle was over, Christian declared, I will give thanks right here and now to him who has delivered me out of the mouth of the lion, that is Apollyon. And he followed this with words of gratitude, saying, Great Beelzebub, the captain of this fiend, made plans for my ruin, and with this in mind he sent out Apollyon fully equipped and in a rage. And the hellish fiend fiercely engaged me, but blessed Michael helped me, and by the blow of my sword I quickly made him fly. Therefore to him let me give lasting praise and thank, and bless his holy name always. Then a hand appeared to Christian, offering some leaves from the tree of life. He accepted them and applied the leaves to the wounds he had received in battle. His wounds healed immediately. Christian took time to sit down in that place, to eat bread and drink from the bottle which had been given to him for refreshment. Once finished, he headed out to continue his journey with his sword drawn in his hand. He said, "Who knows if there might be some other enemy at hand?" But the remainder of his journey through this valley remained quiet, and he experienced no more trouble from Apollyon. Yes, we're on the way to the celestial city, but there will be some fights with the enemy. The flesh will fight, the spirit will fight, the mind will fight, but we have to stand strong, don't we? I do hope you'll stand strong when Satan comes to you. Remember, submit to the lordship of Jesus Christ, body, soul, and spirit. Put on the armor, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. God bless you.